Ayubowan, welcome to 10 Minute Talks. I'm Harshadeva. This week, we're going to talk about relatable peace. So, let me introduce my guest.
Dr. Amr Abdalla is a professor emeritus at the United Nations mandated University for Peace in Costa Rica and a senior advisor on conflict resolution at Karama, a Washington based organization of Muslim women lawyers working on human rights. A scholar practitioner with decades of global experience, he has taught and advised on conflict analysis and peace building across Africa, Asia, the Middle East, Europe, and the Americas. He is also a pioneer in developing conflict resolution approaches rooted in Muslim communities, including the influential Say Peace Manual and several grassroots programs aimed at preventing sectarian violence. Thank you, Professor. Thank you for joining with me. It is an honor to meeting with you online like this. So, my first question is could you please explain what you mean by relatable peace? Putting aside the fact that I'm your student, but how would you explain to someone with no background in peace building at all?
Thank you so much, Harsha, first for this opportunity. And to what I mean by relatable peace, maybe this is something that evolved and developed over the last 30 years. Ever since I started to study in the field of peace and conflict resolution, and I was exposed to various styles of my professors and others, and then I started to develop my own style as I started to teach and do workshops. And I found that one challenge in many of the courses and workshops I attended was when people tended to focus on peace and conflict resolution from two angles. One angle is the highly theoretical and abstract, which is very powerful. But this is more on the philosophical level, on the rational level of how to understand and analyze, but without connecting effectively to the ground and to people's life. That's one. And the second challenge is when people speak about peace and conflict only at the international level and the macro level of conflicts. And I found that while this is very important, and I am not dismissing those approaches, but at the same time, I found that no matter what level of conflict and peace we are talking about, there is a point where we need to touch people at the core. And this is where I saw the success of our work. When all those grand concepts are translated through effective pedagogy to make the classroom or the workshop a space for people to engage, to appreciate that concepts of peace and conflict are things that all of us experience, and that we can learn something that can make us better people. I believe this is really where that notion started to develop. And the more I saw the success of such approaches in my workshops and classes, I recognized that there is something unique in how I am working on this notion of peace. It is not just that how I speak about basic human needs and relative deprivation and all the and identity and so on. No, it is about how to bring it to the level of individuals and communities so that they know what it means. They can share their own experiences in a way that they feel that this is something rich for me as a human being, and that they come out of a class or a workshop feeling empowered with new knowledge and new understanding of conflict and peace that is useful in their own lives. They can then translate that to their work as a diplomat, as an international organization staff, as a government official, as a housewife, as a father, a husband, any person in any setting can take that notion and implement it appropriately in their own context. But that wouldn't happen without the effective pedagogy in a classroom or a workshop where people can share and engage. And that's why I always start my workshops by giving one premise, which is everyone is already an expert in the in peace and conflict resolution, because all of us have experienced conflicts in our lives. All of us know how it feels. We know what it takes to resolve a conflict. We succeeded sometimes, we failed sometimes, and I assure people, all these are rich experiences, and you don't want to undermine them. And my job as an instructor, as a teacher, facilitator, is to encourage people and to open the space for them to share and to have other people learn from their experience as much as they learn from other people's experience. And I am providing them frameworks and concepts that they can fit in their own experiences, and this is how not only we enrich each other with knowledge, but we connect as human beings and we learn how to use this in our own lives. This is relatable peace.
Thank you, Professor. My second question is, how is relatable peace different from other peace building approaches? For example, more traditional or academic approach?
I think this is really the important point about relatable peace. And I hope that this is where I believe it is successful. We start with very strong academic and theoretical concepts in the notion of relatable peace. However, it is all about the pedagogy. It is about how we relate it to our participants and our students. The way we open the space through good examples, good life experiences, make ourselves even vulnerable as we share stories and examples that relate to the big concepts of, again, I go back to some of the big concepts in the field of peace and conflict, such as basic human needs, relative deprivation, identity, and so on. Yes, I can discuss this in a very classic, as you said, academic manner, and talk about the scholars, and this one said this, and this one said that, and that's wonderful. But let me, after I do all this, give people examples and experiences and activities that are interactive, participatory in the classroom that will make them realize, now I see what basic human needs is. Now I see what relative deprivation is. And the next level is to realize, I have been living this. It has been part of who I am and part of my life. And sometimes it becomes like an eye opener, a realization about yourself and about how you lived your life, and it gives you new perspective on how you can improve your life. So I will say that where we distinguish ourselves with the notion of relatable peace, it is about how we develop our own pedagogy, how we create the atmosphere in the classroom to engage people and to make every complex and difficult concept something relatable that people can attach to their own lives so that it can help them to understand their life in a more effective way and to provide them with better, effective tools for how to hopefully resolve conflicts more peacefully in a sustainable way. I am not dismissing the importance of other approaches, academic and classic and otherwise, but I am suggesting that this is a complementary approach, but I think it's very necessary in order to to make it useful to people at a very deep level in how they live their lives. And I think the experience of how we have done this over the years proved to be very effective. I am grateful also for all the experiences that I have witnessed in my work worldwide for the last 30 years. The examples I share from what I have seen in the world usually are powerful, and usually they illustrate, maybe this is the art, this is the secret of the trade, is how I experience something I see in somewhere in the world or in my own life, and how I connect it to one of those grand theories and concepts in a way that people listening to the story can start to reflect on their own experiences and realize that they can do the same. And the more they do this, the more they have better tools for analyzing and understanding themselves. And second, they have better tools for how to solve their problems and conflicts.
Thank you, Professor. Uh, One of the main criticisms of relatable peace is that it's risk over simplifying deep structural injustices. How do you respond to this concern? And how do you see relatability and structural depth working together um, rather than against each other?
Excellent. I think that's a very valid criticism because I think the focus I have in relatable peace is how to touch the individual and how to touch communities at a core level, as I mentioned. And here, your question is very valid. So, what about this, the injustice that is built into structures, the indirect violence, the culture and structural violence that is true, real, and it does affect people across the globe? I believe that the approach of relatable peace uh, is built on the premise that if I want to effect a change at a deep level, I need to change individuals. I need them to start to question themselves against a moral compass, against what how I should behave as a human being with a better understanding of what happens in conflicts and with good perspective on the various components of conflict and how I can actually produce better approaches to dealing with them. Now, will this change structures? Not as at a first step, but I believe that the more we get more people to embrace such notions, then we can start to develop a better critical thinking approach where people start to question the bigger structures and cultures that foster violence and injustice and to start to develop together approaches to how to change such structures and cultures. So I believe that this is similar to what we see in many spiritual approaches, perhaps, and other approaches where change starts from within. And this is what we are embracing in this approach. It may be more long term. It may not have the direct effect on structures and cultures, but when it works, it is way more sustainable because it's a deep change and a deep transformation.
Thank you, Professor. Thank you very much. It was an honor to talking to you. Thank you.
Thank you for the opportunity and wishing you all the best with the great work you are doing.